All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Excited to have everybody here. Hopefully you attended the last one, liked it, and you're back. Good morning, everybody. Make sure you look at the chat and let us know who you are and where you're from. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, so if you're from there, you get bonus points that are worth nothing. Just have a crisp high five the next time I see you. All right. Got a great show lined up for you guys today. We're excited. And if you have questions, we're going to leave some time at the end for Q&A, hopefully. But if not, my panelists will put their emails in the chat and you can reach out to them. My email will be there as well, so you'll have access to us after this. Oh, Maddie, Shaker Heights, representing Ohio. I love it. Thanks for joining us today. So give about one more minute, allow people to join, then we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, Gabe. Thanks for being here. Again, make sure you introduce yourself and where you're from in the chat. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you again for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us today. We know you're all busy, so thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here for this webinar. My name is Chris Stevenson. I'm a 25-plus year veteran in the fitness industry, own and operated clubs, currently run the Empower Group, which is a full-service consulting firm. So that's just a little bit about me if you don't know me. And we're excited two guests that we'll introduce shortly. But we want to thank ASF for putting on such a great webinar. It's great to see companies like ASF that put out great products and service, but also care about educating the industry so that we all can run our businesses better. So big thanks to ASF. We appreciate it. So if you were here last time, you know this, but if you weren't, the theme for this four-part webinar series is real versus feel. And the overarching theme of that is that oftentimes we make decisions based on how we feel as opposed to real. And what I mean by that is real is using data and analytics and statistics to help guide your decision-making, where feel is, I feel like this is a good idea. Now, some will argue that there is a part for a gut feel and a feel component to decision-making, and I would agree. I just think it should be heavily weighted on the real aspects, and then feel is sort of that final thing that helps you finalize decisions. So that's the overall theme. Last time we talked about the truth about KPIs. We had Kate Golden and Carolyn Grassi, who came in and gave really good, tangible information, things that listeners could take away and act on. So they did an awesome job. By building them up, I'm putting a lot of pressure on today's panelists, so we expect you guys to do a great job. Now, I know they will. That's why they're on this panel. But today, the episode is called Survey Says, and we're going to talk all about gathering data and feedback from your members in order to run your businesses. Now, we as operators don't decide if we provide a great experience. Our members decide if we're creating a great experience. So I've had the chance, fortunately, to present this topic, stop guessing and start asking what your members want, literally all over the world. And it's a very popular topic because we have so many ways that we can gather input from members to help us make better decisions, thus creating a better experience, thus making sure that our businesses are very successful. So that's going to be our topic today, is all about just data acquisition and what we do with it and how we use that. I did want to say that I just did some research prior to this webinar, and what's shown is that 96% of consumers don't bother to complain, and 91% of those people will just leave you, and you'll never know why. So if that's not enough evidence to why you should be proactively going out and seeking feedback, I don't know what is. So that kind of tees everything up today. I want to introduce our panelists. First, we'll start with Meredith Rossen. Meredith is the fitness account director for Cooper Wellness Strategies in Dallas, Texas. A fun fact about Meredith is that she took a leave of absence in 2013 from Cooper to work or to live in Kenya. So Meredith's going to give us a better background, and this is being recorded, so be careful what you say, but did you just want to get away from Cooper for a while? Or did you actually want to spend time in Kenya?
No. Well, Africa at large was an interest of mine and working with kids there. But yes, I knew that was something as I continued in my career path. If I didn't have time, then I was not going to make time later. So thankfully, I had a great boss that allowed me to take that time to be able to head over there and work with kids there.
Okay. Is it true that they bless the rains down in Africa?
I didn't experience that.
Okay, I'm just impressed that I thought you were too young to get an obscure Toto song reference. But tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so the last 15 years, I have actually been at our commercial facility, private multi-purpose club, and I have the last 6 years been the assistant general manager there. And I was really fortunate that a position opened up in our consulting and facility management branch of the company, and really just was excited to take on a new opportunity to explore beyond just the commercial facility clubs. And so I've just started that in January, and I am getting my feet wet, my feet under me. But a lot of what we're going to talk about today is really stemming from my experience with the members at our commercial club here.
Fantastic. And for those that may know or may not know, Cooper is legendary in the fitness industry. So if you were at URSA last year, you would have heard Dr. Cooper's keynote, and it was inspiring and amazing. And tell us just a little bit about Dr. Cooper.
Yeah, so Dr. Cooper, he coined the term aerobics. He started actually in the Air Force and was working with NASA to find ways to combat deconditioning of astronauts. And in that process of conducting that study, he really started to see this link between medical and fitness. And so he's really kind of the pioneer behind a lot of our industry and why we're all here. It's kind of crazy to think about, but back in his era, he was kind of seen as a quack initially, because he was telling people if you had any kind of cardiac issue, you needed to get up and moving. Back then, your doctor would have told you need to kick your feet up, coast into the golden year. So he really has paved the way for a lot of us. And I'm fortunate to get to be around him. He's still here almost every day. So yeah, that's a little bit about Dr. Cooper.
That's fantastic. At URSA last year, I had the opportunity to visit Cooper. Beautiful facility, great staff, and Meredith. But I had the chance to, no, I'm just kidding. But I had the chance to spend some time with Dr. Cooper, and I guess it's pretty rare that he's there just seeing people who happen to be visiting. And he was amazing. I spent probably about an hour with him, and he told me every possible story, and he's an amazing guy. So if you don't know anything about Dr. Cooper, please Google him and check it out, because he really is so influential on our industry. Well, thank you so much for that background. So moving on, our other guest today is Micah Logan. He's the founder CEO of Meld Fitness and Wellness. And a little fun fact about Micah is that he's certified in human behavior tactics, parentheses, behavioral profiling, which means I'm pretty sure you're just judging myself and Meredith this whole time. And
so much
doing
judging going on right now.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been in the fitness industry for about 2 decades, and I know I look tremendous, but no, I've been preserved. The reality is that I've worked at every conceivable that you can imagine, except for space with Dr. Cooper. I've worked in every conceivable facility. I started as a floor trainer, cleaning machines, having to bring the second uniform with me to work just to keep myself clean for clients later in the day. I have been a corporate fitness manager. I've been a manager of a boutique fitness franchise. I've worked in big boxes, private clubs. I've done it all pretty much. In-home training. So I've done that too. And ultimately, I ended up founding Meld about 7 years ago. And what Meld is a culmination of my nearly 2 decades now, or at the time, like more like 7 years ago, 7 minus 20 is 13. So 13 years of experience at the time in the fitness industry. And what we do is we basically focus on what the micro fitness studio. And for my money, for what it's worth, I believe that the micro fitness facility is the future of fitness. Smaller facilities are where a lot of consumers are going. The data is real, not felt. Maybe some people feel it when they lose money, but the real part of it is that the big box club are shedding members for sake of boutique fitness. It's something that we've known in the fitness industry for the last 10 years. We are on the forefront of the smaller 1,000 square foot facility that caters to multiple different needs for consumers. You see me right behind me in the picture. There's a smoothie bar, which is a non-GMO whole food smoothie that our franchisees would have in their corporate location, in their franchise location, in addition to the small group training that they do as well. So we work with members up to 4 members to 1 coach in the studio. I just started franchising last year because I'm not, I wasn't too much of a masochist at the time, but now apparently I am, because I don't like money. So I spend it all creating things. But anyways, I'm excited to be here. I'm also a CEO of a small startup. They manufacture these soundproofing devices. It's weird. It has nothing to do with the fitness industry. But I was tapped to be a part-time CEO doing that. So that also fills my time. Other than that, I don't know what else to say other than, yes, I can read body language and from some of the world's best body profilers, but I'm not reading you now, Meredith, despite what you're thinking right now at this very moment.
Yeah, I was afraid with you reading body language, we'd have to turn our cameras off.
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on? Tell us a little bit about where meld came from.
Yeah, the word meld?
Yeah.
So the name meld means to bring two things together to form one thing. What we found out is that we had members that came from out of the community, all with different goals, but they came in with one purpose, which is to achieve their fitness and wellness goals in unity by engaging with the training that we offer at the studio. And so we just form one fitness family. So we call our members our fitness family or our fit family. And so essentially we meld things together. Interesting, we're talking about member feedback because the name Meld was actually in member-led focus group that we convened to rebrand from our previous name to Meld so that we can make sure it worked in the marketplace.
Well, that really sets us up for a good discussion. That was
We did not plan that.
We did not plan that. Well, that's fantastic. So everybody that's watching right now and listening, obviously we have two really incredibly qualified panelists who I know love this industry, and you're going to get some great information today. So let's move into our questions. We're going to talk about gathering data, and there's a million different ways you can gather data. And I did want to share this. It takes humility to seek feedback. It takes wisdom to understand it, analyze it, and appropriately act on it. And that was a quote by Stephen Covey. And he's right. It does take humility. I know early on in my career, when I started pursuing feedback, I took everything personally. And I will tell you to this day, I mean, occasionally you'll get some feedback that you can't help because we're humans, but take a little bit personally, but understanding just the value of that feedback. But I've talked to, other presenters who refuse to look at the feedback forms because I just can't handle it if somebody said something negative. There's a club that we do some work with locally, our consulting group, and they won't survey members at all because if we survey them and they say things, we actually have to act on it. So I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, they're missing out on a lot, right? So the first question, we'll start with Micah, is that how do you use feedback to drive your business? Well, you already told us one way, right? You literally use feedback to help create it, but how do you use it to drive?
So I will use a quote from Thomas Sowell, the economist. He says it takes an immense amount of knowledge to understand the extent of your own ignorance. So if you don't know what you don't know that you should know, how in the world can you make changes, right? Sometimes in business, we're like 2 layers back. Like we don't even know what we think we should know to ask questions and even to drive change. And so what we do is we survey our members approximately twice a year. And then sometimes more frequently based off of like if we roll something out. Oftentimes that feedback looks differently. You talk about driving business. When I was going to launch the franchise, that is something where you're investing a lot of money into IP and to your brand and ensuring that like your brand actually stays solid. So you can't afford to mess that up. So one of the things that we got was our members wanted to say that they went to a place that was a name, one word, like I like going to X. Versus I like going to blah, 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 right? Like it doesn't really flow. So that was one of the ways that like when we had to rebrand, we did that. When it comes to services and programs that we offer, right before we reopened because of COVID, one of the things that we did was we used that time to talk about times of delivery of service because we're a personal training boutique facility. We use that feedback to talk about equipment, and we use that feedback to talk about what kind of other additional add-on services would you like? And then the dreaded last question is, what do you not like that we currently do so that we can change it, right? Like, honestly, let's just have a real conversation. So we got interesting feedback, which led to us extending the morning times an hour later. I didn't know that that's what the members wanted. So we did it. It's one of the most popular session times of the entire week. They asked us for specific kinds of barbells. They wanted bumper plates. They want the rubber bumper plates. There was a whole bunch of different things that they wanted, pieces of equipment that I didn't even know that they actually had thought about. I'm like, you're a member, you'll do what we say, or else. But they said they wanted something different, so we provided that to them. Another thing that we asked them about, as I mentioned, is what do we do that you don't like, essentially? And one of the things that they said that we do that they don't like was the fact that they didn't like the water bubbler. They thought it was unsanitary. Yeah, a water bubbler. So we have a water bubbler in the studio, and like it just sits on, the old Belmont Springs or the Poland Springs bottle, and then you press the thing. They wanted a refrigerator with bottled water. I was like, you can't be serious. But it was near universal. It was the most weird thing. And people are weird. I'm telling you, unless you survey them, you don't really know what they want. It's like you can think that but you have no idea. So we switched to a fridge with water, free bottled water when they come in, and they absolutely love it. They did not want to bring their home thing and put it up against the thing that everyone else has. So that's just like a couple of surveys that we did. I can give you more. We surveyed them about recovery sessions. Do you do recovery? And if so, how long do you go? How much do you spend? What kind of recovery do you do? If we offered recovery, would you take it? How long would you want to spend in a recovery session with us? Like what range of pricing would you be looking at? That stuff was really good feedback for us to know what we should add and what we should take away.
That's excellent. And I think, one thing that's important to remember about feedback is, yes, it gives you valuable data, sometimes surprising, that helps you drive your business forward, but it also gives your members a voice. So they get to give you their opinions, but they're also just appreciative of the fact that you're reaching out and you want to actually hear from them. And like you said, oftentimes it sounds like you use a lot of the surveys to help drive new things into your business. How are we going to make changes? How are we going to provide what you want? That's fantastic, Micah. Appreciate it. So Meredith, how about you?
Yeah, so I don't know, this is a fun fact, but is a fact about me. I started as a math major, so I love numbers. And I feel like numbers helps tell part of the story. However, what I found through my time here at Cooper is that the numbers only tell a small portion of it. And we fill in the gaps with our own perception, our own feelings. And so what I've loved is that we have switched over the last few years to MXM. Which is a member experience feedback survey. It goes out quarterly to our members. It's based on their check-in. So the hope is that you're getting feedback that's not dated. It's kind of real time, a little bit more real time for you to be able to make changes so that you don't get to the point where they leave your club without telling you about something. And I would beg to differ, Chris, that our membership percentage of the number of people that'll complain might be slightly lower than that 96% because they have no problem letting us know the areas that they want us to improve. And then also the thing that I love the most is that qualitative data that they give us that helps us from an innovation standpoint. We take all of that qualitative data and really just dissect it, create our capital wish list. And then also one thing you mentioned too is a lot of times people aren't really ready to face the information that they're about to have. And I would say don't ask anything that you are not ready to have and start a conversation with. So with all of our surveys, one of the things I really love is that it creates a dialogue. We've gone through this training that helps us create a dialogue where our members feel heard, but then also it creates opportunity for us to be able to find the gaps in our communication or education to let them know about offerings that we might have that help support the need that they've requested through the surveys. So I really like looking at both the quantitative data to be able to see the trends and maybe even shifts in perceptions over a period of time, as well as the qualitative data to really just take the guesswork out of it, take my own perception, my own filter, my own bias out of it, and really start to hone in on what our members are asking for and really mean behind the data or the score that they maybe gave us behind, their net promoter score or whatnot. I also think it really provides opportunity for education for both your staff and members. So we've had opportunities where we realize our staff is sharing misinformation. And so it's given us opportunities to go back and make sure that we are sharing and training appropriately and kind of tweak along the ways. And then one of the other ways that I really like using our member surveys is it helps us have really good tangible opportunities to have employee recognition, which is super important to me. So I know we're going to talk a lot about member experience and member feedback, and I think that's good, but I also think it's super important to be getting feedback from your employees and to be able to share the feedback that you're receiving from members with employees, especially when it has that positive reinforcement behind it. And to your point, Chris, we actually had that come up a few times when we first started using MXM. I think we had a few teammates who were hesitant of what might come out in the survey, either because they knew they were doing something wrong, or they were concerned that they were going to have to take on a lot more projects and their bandwidth wasn't there. And that was important for us to hear as well. So we needed to know how to tackle that so that we could really utilize the tool that we thought was important, MXM, and then be able to ensure that they felt equipped to be able to face the feedback that we were receiving and let them know that we would be creating dialogue with them as well. And then we also use programming feedback, and sometimes we'll do that in more real time versus waiting on the member experience. So that's something that also with MXM, again, it's quarterly, which is a bite-sized time frame for us to look at experiences that members might be having. But when we have immediate feedback, that's the most impactful. And I don't know too much about it, but MXM does have an opportunity. I think it's a kiosk maybe, where you can get real-time feedback from members to fill out and share contents or opportunities for you to be able to improve. So we haven't gone that route, but it is something that I'm interested in, because why wait a whole quarter and possibly give them that much time to be able to decide they're going to leave your club without giving us the opportunity to be able to fix something immediately for them.
Awesome. So how long have you worked for MXM?
I know this whole thing, because we use them, and I'm going to tell you, I actually started maybe on the wary side of thinking, what rabbit holes are we going to go down? I actually started on that in that standpoint, but I really have come way further down the spectrum where it's been super helpful in figuring out how to use that data to be able to help us be able to tell our stories to our owners as well. And again, back to that capital request, that's something that's huge for us. It lays the groundwork for us. It's not coming from Meredith as a suggestion. It's coming directly from our consumers.
No, that's awesome. And for those that aren't familiar with MXM, it's an incredible platform. Blair McCaney, who I'm sure you've seen on webinars at some point, because he and Bill McBride fight for who can do the most webinars in the world. And I think they're like neck and neck in the race. But Blair is the master at surveys and analyzing the data. And it's an incredible platform. And he's an incredible guy who does a lot for our industry. So it really is a great platform. A couple of things that you mentioned, and you said this earlier, but don't ask for feedback if you're not going to do anything. That's definitely a key, because there's nothing worse than asking, getting it, and doing nothing. You're better off just not asking. The qualitative data thing is interesting as well. At one of our last clubs, we would have requests for shades, like window shades. But as you're spending money, the last thing you want to do is spend them on something not sexy at all, like window shades. But because we were able to track that data over time, we started to see more and more requests for that. And then it was put over the top one day I was walking through the weight room floor and there was somebody benching with sunglasses on. Now that's not totally unusual for Los Angeles, right? But at this particular case, I walked over, just engaged the member, and he had said, yeah, no, at certain times during the day, the sun is shining through, I can't even see. So I'm like, wow, that's a bad experience.
Weekend at Bernie's, right?
Yeah, that's risk experience, so that was a great way to do that. And I do appreciate that you mentioned employee feedback, because that's going to be episode 3 of this webinar series. We're going to talk all about how important it is to get employee feedback at all times. Excellent information from both of you. We appreciate it. So moving on to the next question, there's tons of ways to get feedback, right? So at our club, Net Promoter Score was a big one for us. We would send it out 21 days after you joined, and quarterly. We did a member advisory board, which was also very powerful. Then we would do more targeted surveys when we wanted to approach different areas. And then there's just, general engaging feedback when you teach your staff to engage. So we always call it like being on the gym floor or like hallway talk, because you can get some amazing things in the hallway just by hearing what people have to say, right? So there's that engagement piece. But Micah, tell us specifically what formats you use for your surveys.
Yeah, sure. So we use SurveyMonkey. We use we're a big NPS believer. You know, we think is really important. And then in addition to that, we do exit interviews with members. So exit interviews, believe it or not, are absolutely a massive way for you to learn, and probably the best way. And so we actually so our initial consultations happen on Zoom. Our exit interviews happen on Zoom. And so before a person leaves, we ask them for just 5 minutes of their time. We sit down and we say, tell us about your experience, and we shut up. We don't lead them. There's no leading questions, no close-ended questions. It's completely open-ended. And then everything that follows that are, well, did you get what you expected? Did we deliver what we promised? And what are the reasons are you leaving? You know, and typically on average, a person leaving us, and we're in the city of Boston, so it's, it's very dense. It's a very transient city. People are leaving because of work reasons. Their offices are moving, or they're buying a house in the burbs, starting a family, or, they're moving themselves because it's a transient city moving across the country. And so you learn so much about your club, about the coach. Like some of the things that we've learned as an example in these exit interviews, where I didn't realize how much I needed a trainer versus I needed a facility. At first I thought I needed a facility. And what I realized was that the trainer is really what stood out to me more than anything else. And at first I got offended, like, don't be a dick. And then so can I say that, a dick on webinar? Okay. So don't be a dick. And then I realized,
Jesse will fix that in post before we
right.
put it out on YouTube.
Yeah. Don't record it. And I'd said it now 3 times. So, cause I thought it was like the facility. It's like, oh, like not just that the facility is going to do everything, but how important is the facility to this whole thing. Right. But it's really about the services. And then it really helped me to understand and to really nail our value proposition. If you understand your value proposition of your business, then you understand your brand promise. If you understand your brand promise, then you can drive business. But you can't do that until you first understand what value you bring to the marketplace. And that's what the exit interview has helped us to do. Another thing that we do, in addition to the NPS that we do once a year and the exit interviews, is we also have employees get data, so that as the owner, I'm not coming in and asking them directly, so they don't shade anything. Sometimes people like having that veil of the employee between them and the owner, so they can actually truly be honest. Mm-hmm. And so what we'll do is we'll have like an employee intervention survey where they'll just go in and they'll just say, hey, look, what's your experience here? Don't worry, it's not going to be shared. And of course, we breach trust almost immediately after that, because then they tell us at the staff meeting and they know it's coming. And so they're getting used to that. And so the last thing that we do is during our staff meeting, my staff is responsible to bring us one thing that we can work on a month that they see that people are going through. And so we have a very hands-on approach to surveying. It's yes, there are some automated, like Net Promoter Score, the NPS score, that's important, but getting that face-to-face feedback from both employees, like Meredith mentioned, and directly from the consumer when they're leaving, because it's just like this last day of high school, right? They don't have anything else to lose. They're leaving, so they're willing to tell you anything. Those exit interviews are really important. FaceTime is important in our business.
That's awesome. And I think to your point, crafting your surveys and doing them in ways that do promote honesty is really important. Mm-hmm. I recently spoke at an event in Missouri, did 2 presentations. And the first presentation, I knew a couple people not very well. And then there was a room monitor. And I said, hey, afterwards, I said, give me some feedback. And they were like, oh, you were great. It was wonderful. And I'm sure that was true. But no, in all honesty, what else were they going to say? They really didn't know me. There's no trust that's been built. They're not going to give me honest feedback. So when I went into the next session, the second one, instead of saying that, what I posed was I said, hey, do me a favor. I hope you enjoy this, but tell me 3 things you feel like I could do better the next time. And sure enough, they gave me feedback that was good. So that helps me improve. So even if you have a good session, I know it can always be better, but it's important to craft your surveys in a way that really, because it's so easy to accidentally create leading surveys to sort of get you the data you want, right? But to do it in a way where it promotes honesty and you get valuable feedback is really, really important.
Please explain Tell me more about this. What's your experience about this? You know, we're okay not being the better choice. We thought we were the better choice for you, and maybe we weren't. Tell us why we weren't, you know, in a non-dickish way.
4. Okay. So Meredith, you mentioned that you do a lot with MXM, but specifically, are there a couple different types of surveys that you find to be the most effective? So a little more tactical and specific.
Oh, I lost you for a second, but I think, no, I know where you're heading with it. Am I back? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're fine.
Okay. So I will say that our marketing and communications team have to actually reel me back in, because I am such a proponent of surveys and I like to get the feedback. I've been down the rabbit holes too many times where we made the wrong calls based off of our own perception. So back to that point, they have to reel me back in. We not only use that MXM survey, but then we also plan out strategically based off of our annual goals, what additional surveys we're going to send out, which is really hard for me because we also have, when I was at the fitness center, I had 13 departments under me. All of those are very niche demographics that I'm trying to hone in on. And so these global surveys weren't helping me really pinpoint them specifically. So then I also found opportunities for us to be able to have those, like Micah mentioned, those direct conversations with our frontline team to be able to share what they're hearing back with us, but then also being able to get some of that instantaneous feedback. So there's a few ways that we do the instantaneous feedback, but let me just back up real quick to MXM one more time. So what I love, I know, thank you. Blair can send me a residual check later. But one of the things that I really loved about it was that it allows for layers of filtering, because sometimes depending on the time frame we were looking at, our NPS score was lower than what our kind of threshold was. And when we would dive into the data, we would find that the information might be, as we kind of honed in on a certain demographic, it allowed us to really see which demographic was pulling that score down, that we needed to add either programming or really hone in on the experience a little bit more for that demographic. So I love that component, but I will say this, and sorry, Blair, but one of the things with it being formulated and a template, one of the things that we really struggled with on the front end was that it is template based, meaning that the language didn't always correspond with our club's language. So an example of that was the feedback we were getting about aquatics. We were taking it as we offer masters swim, we offer swim lessons for kids, we offer swim lessons for adults, we have water aerobics classes, and aquatics was such a broad topic that MXM honed in on. It didn't allow us to know exactly where we needed to create additional changes. And so there are some give and take with templates. The good thing with the MXM is also that it takes out a lot of the bias that you potentially could have from a human being able to create a survey. However, I do utilize SurveyMonkey to be able to hone in on those niche demographics that I mentioned before, maybe our childcare and youth parents. So that's one thing. And then also looking at I mentioned earlier, but I really like instant feedback as well. And sometimes waiting for a full quarter to get that feedback isn't good enough for me. And like Micah mentioned, a lot of times people are not comfortable sharing feedback. And actually, when we first started with MXM, we had people that didn't read the body of the email to see that we would be contacting them. And so they were very thrown off by the fact that someone was contacting them. Now they've named names and they know that their name is now attached to whatever they've shared with us. So it was a little bit of a learning curve with our consumers. But as we mentioned earlier, it was so important for them to know that we heard them and we continued the conversation beyond the survey directly with them. So anytime we needed clarity or to continue to educate them, we sought those opportunities out. But then back to the instant feedback, I like to use those in person after a program and or an Instagram poll. So I know, Chris, you know that I like Instagram. But that's a really great way for us to be able to get instantaneous feedback from our clientele. We do that for our retail space. If we're trying to make a decision while we're at market, we'll get feedback right away to see what's the interest level. Is there a color that would do better than another color? Same with time of classes, or just allowing them in the moment to give us feedback as soon as a program or a service ended, so that there isn't that time lapse and you're getting a true gut feeling from them of how we made them feel. And so we're kind of getting to target their attitude toward our service immediately and be able to correct it. So very similar to what Micah was saying, I agree completely with the exit surveys. I'm curious, Micah, do you get a lot of people that are interested in giving you an exit survey, or is that hard to get them to give you that feedback?
Well, I'm very charming. So they usually say yes. No, I'm joking, but it's like, yeah, they do. And it's because we say, I'm very gracious, or we try to be very gracious, when they're leaving, non-proby, like, why are you leaving? And, like, you have to move 400 miles away. It's kind of like, well, have you enjoyed, the first question we ask before we ask for an interview is, well, have you enjoyed your time with us? And if they say, it's a great question, because it's, yes, I enjoyed my time, or, well, there were some things, and then it's like, okay, well, let's talk about those things, or it's like, you enjoyed your time. Great. Let's talk about that, and tell us what you liked about it and what would you do better if you were us. And then it's like, well, you didn't enjoy your time. Well, tell us why. That doesn't really happen often. Not that we're perfect, but we're damn near. And people are just like, well, I'll let you know. Like, for instance, we had a member complain about a plyo box that we have, because it was wood and not, the cushy, whatever the material is that keeps kids safe at playgrounds nowadays, unlike the ones that we had when I was younger that would kill somebody. But like, it's like stuff like that. And like, they'll complain about that. They're not really happy with that piece of equipment. And it's like, okay, well, should I make this change that everyone uses? We do thousands of sessions a year. Like, should I make this one change for this one person? It's a wooden box, or will they just get over it? How about this? How about you just do your quote box jumps on a stack of bumper plates, because they're not going to move, right? Because they're heavy enough to not move, right? And so that was kind of an adjustment we made. But typically, yeah, as long as you're gracious, and as long as you're not like coming at it like, well, why are you leaving? And you know what I mean? Like, they will agree to do it, but you have to kind of charm them a little bit at the beginning. And typically people, they won't just review you and give you 2 stars like this lady did to us, who was getting married, and she was pissed off at like a $30 charge that she was told about. But I'm not bitter about that. But it's, typically, yes, you have to just kind of charm them a little bit, and they'll come to your side, because we're all humans. We want, typically the average non-American psycho narcissist wants a person to do okay. So they want to like help you improve. And if you're genuine, then they will respond. Absolutely.
So great points for both of you. I actually wrote a couple of things down that I just want to kind of pile on to. One is, we're using the word survey a lot, and we do a lot of surveying to get feedback. But Meredith, you mentioned the use of Instagram to get really quick feedback. Micah, you mentioned reviews. Reviews are a form of feedback, so you should utilize that as well. So when you're on social, you're responding to those reviews, your direct messaging, those sort of things. But that's a great way to get feedback. You both also talked about just, in-person, instantaneous feedback. And that's really important, especially given the amount of people that won't complain. I know I do a lot of work with Dr. Paul Bedford, the retention guru, amazing guy and a great friend and mentor. But we always talk about when somebody leaves your facility, you always say, hey, have a great day. When are we going to see you again? Or, hey, we'll see you tomorrow, right? Because we want to encourage them to come back. But we had a discussion recently. He said the one thing you should be saying as well before that is, how was your experience today? Mm-hmm. And you want to use the word today, because that's going to get some of those people who might say, oh, it was great. Or, you know what? It wasn't great because I couldn't accomplish A, B, or C, or this was wrong. So it's a great way to, that live interaction piece just can't be underestimated on that power.
And Chris, can I chime in real quick with that too? And
yes.
To that point, I actually had, as a consumer, this happen. And I think you're spot on that people won't necessarily speak up, but if you give them the opportunity, you have to start that conversation. And as a consumer, my dog getting groomed, and I had never had a dog groomer come out and ask me, is there anything you want me to do differently next time after I got my dog back? I'd never had someone ask me that. And it gave me a moment to kind of assess and give real-time feedback. And it was kind of just a light bulb moment for me of starting that dialogue and giving them the opportunity to share with you what could be done better in the future for their experience. So
I think I'm probably wondering the same thing as all of our listeners. What did you want done differently to your dog? It's like, oh, you left a little too much on the top, or the tail's
Kentucky waterfall, Chris. Do you know what that is?
No.
That's a mullet.
Oh.
You know what? That would be outstanding.
I just want to say something about what Meredith said, because I think it's really important. So you asked me why they give the exit interviews is because great experience or just average experience for that individual, we have a relationship with them. So we train our staff to text GIFs to members during the day randomly. So they'll get like a Seinfeld GIF, "I was in the pool" by George Costanza, to make them laugh. Like they'll get like text messages all along. So whether their expectation meets our brand promise, it usually does, but in the rare cases it doesn't. We have a relationship enough where they're like, okay, well, this isn't working for me now. And we're like, tell us why. And we have a relationship so they feel more comfortable saying something.
That's fantastic. So I want to ask you both, obviously we're all big fans of feedback, and we like to obviously get as much information as possible. It helps us run our businesses better and create a better customer experience. Do you guys do, and the answer might be no, but do you do anything to deliberately encourage people to give you feedback? So we talked about being in person and just simply going and asking to solicit it. I know that clubs I've worked with and clubs I've owned and operated, I would actually, during the sales process, as we're touring a member, we would say, and by the way, we care about your opinions. Expect a survey 21 days after you join, and then every quarter, and please fill those out. We've had times where we did more targeted surveys about specific things, as you guys both mentioned you do, where we would do a raffle. So everybody who participated in the survey would get a raffle ticket. So are there any things you do? And by the way, I had actually emailed Blair, Meredith's best friend, and I did say, what's a typical response rate on clubs? And he responded with, the higher the dues of the club, the higher the response rate. And he said it can go anywhere from 8% to 45%. Industry standard is about 12%. So just as because obviously, and I think one of you mentioned it earlier, if you don't have enough responses, you get your three vocal people who all know each other and collaborate to get you to try to change something. You got to get enough people to respond to make it significant data, right? So are there any things you do, and either one of you can go first to encourage that participation?
Go ahead, Micah.
Meredith,
you're up.
Okay, now it's awkward.
So I know, awkward silence. So what we do is don't make me say the word again. What we do is we encourage our members we'll give them 10% off supplements, or we'll find something else if they screenshot a Google review and send it to us. So like, we love Google reviews, helps with the SEO, helps with the Google Local My Business, helps drive more members to you. Obviously, it's illegal for you to solicit them for a review. You can't technically pay them, by the way. That is called an endorsement, and it's not legal by law. And we can talk offline when I'm not being recorded about this, when I had to deal with someone who was trying to screw me. But but we offered them, if they send us a screenshot, what we'll do is we will try to discount something for them by, we won't give them anything free, because that is technically an endorsement also, even if you're not exchanging money. So we will discount something for them to buy, like a supplement, like a session, we'll give you a session half price or something like that. That tends to work well for Google reviews, and they'll just, they'll send us a text with their review, and they're all like proud of it, and typically it's 5-star, except for that, that left the 2-star review.
So it sounds like what you're encouraging the listeners to do is to put up maybe some signs in their facility that say, if you review us on Google and it's 5 stars, we'll give you free stuff.
Those signs is weird. We talk to them directly. So we'll send them a text or an email. so we use Keep by Infusionsoft, and everything is all templated out. And it's not, what's nice about it is that you can merge tags. So it's not like, hi, customer respondent, which I got from like a car dealership one time. It says like, hi, Meredith. Thanks so much for being a member. Appreciate it. Listen, as we help you to reach your goals, would you just help us to reach ours? Here's a link for a Google review. If you have time, send us a screenshot, and we're going to give you 10% off your next session, something like that. It's very easily, and it's automated, goes out after a period of time after they've joined.
That's excellent. I know one thing too, to your point, with our Net Promoter Score and the templates that we talk about that go out to the respondents, for our promoters, we would put in there a link to wherever we wanted the review to go and say, hey, and if you have a few minutes and since you're so happy with our service, please click here and get us a review. So it's just a way, because even your best customers won't think I should go review these guys because they're awesome. So that little nudge would help that. But we only sent that to promoters. We didn't attach that link to the detractors.
Yeah, well, smart. Smart to not do that. What I mean by illegal, it's not illegal to pay someone to review you. It's illegal to pay them and not disclose that you're paying for the review. So you have to, someone leaves a review and you've paid them to do it, you have to write, this is an endorsed point of view, right? So FYI.
So Meredith, how do you guys at Cooper bribe people to fill out surveys?
Yes.
So it's funny. I actually was thinking about this, and I had read somewhere, and I wish I remember where it was, about incentivizing people for completing and giving you feedback, and that actually ends up prompting them in their head, because they're going to be getting something from you and they somehow think they're going to be tied to it because you have to somehow get back to them to give them whatever you're going to give them. That actually drives your scores up. And this is my callback to Kate from last week, but it dirties your data. And so it really doesn't give you honest feedback. And so being very careful of that. And one of the things I think for us that has been the biggest driver towards participating in our member feedback surveys is that we actually listen and follow through. And whether that follow through is with action or follow through is through conversation, I think that has been one of the biggest drivers. And then the other thing is, through our feedback, we've also found really great success stories of our members. And so then we reach out to be able to help share those success stories, and other members see that they want to be able to start sharing their success stories or other fellow members' success stories. So they use that survey as an opportunity to share those successes as well. So I would say, other than the other things you guys mentioned, those are kind of two other ways that we look at it.
Fantastic. So we're almost out of time, but I do want to touch on this really quickly. And just to kind of end this thing on a fun note, the question I'm going to ask is, was there ever a time you got feedback that you was just like shake your head, sort of funny, not funny? You're just like, I can't believe this. As an example, just to put it into perspective, at our last club, we had a woman that had emailed some feedback, and she said, you need to replace your towels. I was in yoga doing Shavasana, and your towel was so raggedy that I had to use my own sweat sock to cover my eyes to get into a deep state of Shavasana, which, I'm like, are you serious right now? So we respond to everybody, so we responded and said, we'll make sure that we do a better job combing through the towels and removing older towels and replacing them more frequently. We are very disappointed that you had to resort to I couldn't help myself, resort to using your own sweat sock to cover your eye as opposed to one of our towels. So, it was just kind of one of those moments. So just, if you ever had a funny moment where you were like, I cannot believe we just got this feedback.
Yeah. So we had, we send a survey out because I survey about the employees too. Like, we survey about everything, right? Like the employees, the experience, all the other stuff. And where we're concerned with the boutique fitness studio, like the employees are the service, right? Like the trainers. So, so we ask about them all the time. And one person responded, I don't think that my, trainer is Satan, but I'm not saying I haven't seen them in the same room. So I thought that was pretty funny. And so I responded back by saying, Hail Mary, full of grace. Thank you for your feedback. So that was pretty good.
Awesome.
That's great. So we actually, it kind of became part of our culture here at the fitness center. Was in the mornings, we would get a summary of anyone new that has completed our member surveys. So all of us would have our cup of coffee and just be sitting at our, I mean, you could literally hear people down the hallway talking to one another. Just, did you see that one? And usually they were about locker room feedback, which there's some funny things going on. I was trying to pick one that maybe would work for you guys, but sometimes it was just people honing in on what people are watching in the locker room. I mean, obviously being in Texas, there's the news source might be a point of contention, and just hearing how much it mattered to certain people, certain things.
He's
and then we
watching
also
soccer.
yeah. They wanted us to limit the number of channels and what channels we allowed in there. But also we have geese on our property. And so we would start this tally of how many times we would see someone mention, can you do something about the goose poop? And it's like, you guys come out and feed the geese and it's going to come out. So that's one thing that just always would make us chuckle. But yeah, I mean, there's always some good stuff that you just kind of shake your head and you say, I can't quite address that one.
Yeah, I always said my goal eventually is to write a book, and not a book technically on how you do operations in fitness. It's just about all of the stories from members and crazy things like that. To be the most entertaining book. It'd probably get optioned for a movie. I think it's that entertaining, or maybe in a series. There's probably so much info that we could do a full series on it. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. No joke. You're the best panelists I worked with all day today. But I appreciate you taking the time. Micah, if you could just give us a really quick, before we log off here, sort of some wisdom that the listeners can take away, maybe something they can implement right away, maybe something if somebody's not doing anything to acquire feedback, what the first step would be, just some brief wisdom.
Sure. I would say go to the part of your business that you're the most unsure about. And I think that, a lot of ruthless honesty with ourselves is really important, which is why we elicit feedback. So go to the part of your business that you're the most unsure about. Do you lose employees kind of fairly regularly, or have you noticed grumblings about something? We all have a walk into our facilities and have a gut feeling that something's kind of off. So ask about that. Ask about it in an open question way and not a closed question way, so that people can express themselves. When you allow environment for people to express themselves, they will, and you'll get more than you ever bargained for. So one piece of advice that you can use tomorrow is use that gut feeling or that piece of your business that you think is not that great. And if you have a system, a newsletter system or something by which you can automate messaging, automate a survey to go out with one question about your business. If you could change anything about the business, what would you change? And then let it automatically drip, 1 quarter for like an entire year, and then see kind of the interesting answers that you come up with.
Awesome. That's incredible, Micah. Thank you so much. Meredith.
Yeah, so I would say, one, be open to getting feedback, question yourself, be a little bit reflective of why you've been closed off and tap into that a little bit more. But then the second thing is, hopefully you do make that change. You start to create dialogue in one form or fashion, and don't let it stop with a one-time question. Make sure you're continuing the dialogue beyond that, and then make sure you're also assessing beyond that first initial question. So there should be a follow-up survey to see, are you on the right track? Is there something that you could continue to tweak to be able to make sure that you're on the right path of what the members are wanting? So yeah.
That was fantastic. And if you wouldn't mind, Micah, you just did, Meredith, if you don't mind throwing your email in the chat. So if people have questions, they can reach out to you. I did the same, but thank you guys, Meredith, Micah, Eminem, you guys were incredible.
Snap. I think I feel a road show coming on right
now.
Yep.
We got to do this live. No, but it was tremendous. And what I loved is the information was sound, data-based. It was real, not feel. And you gave very tangible, tactical things that people can do. So I think it was very valuable what you guys provided. So thank you guys so much. Truly appreciate it. To the listeners, thank you guys for being here. I know you have a lot of choices in what you choose for education. So we appreciate that you chose us. ASF, again, thank you for providing this opportunity for myself and these expert panelists to share. Please join us again next month, where this month we did how to get feedback from your members, where, as our panelists alluded to, we'll get how to get feedback from our staff. But again, thank you, panelists. It was an absolute pleasure. We appreciate you. And for everybody out there, I know time is a commodity, and I'm grateful that you spent yours with ours. Have a great day and keep changing lives.